Hi guys, Christy Melcher here with my MC5316 final project about digital kids. This is kind of a new emerging topic that I was really interested in, and I'll kind of get to why very quickly. Who cares about kids and technology? Well, I do. Even though I'm only 45, I'm a stepmother to Mason, age 5, and a grandmother to Kinley, age 4, and my granddaughter Cameron, age 22 months. So as you can tell, we have digital devices in our home. We have iPhones and iPads, first generation. We have a new iPad as of about 2 weeks ago. We've got MacBook Pros, and we've got smart TVs, and we're pretty much digitally connected. And we have the highest speed internet we can here at the house, obviously, because I work from home. But this kind of led me to where I'm at and why I care about this topic. I've got a couple of video samples to show you about what kind of happens in our house on a daily basis. So let's look at those.
Mason, what's wrong? What's wrong? You don't get the iPad.
So interestingly enough, that we can actually understand that he says iPad. This is kind of what I experienced with my 22-month-old granddaughter. And here's another example. She experiences more of this with her mother than she does with me, but she does frequently ask me for my phone, or as Cameron would put it, my pone, my pone. So it is kind of funny, but it's not really funny. And I think what's surprising to me is how upset the kids really get over it. And I'm not sure exactly why. So that kind of led me to the question of what's the big deal about the phone and the iPad? Well, there was a researcher that I referenced a little bit later in the presentation, and he talks about how, children basically look. They can't run a computer, they can't operate a keyboard, they don't know how to work a mouse, but they do have their little fingers. And the iPads and the iPhones are so interactively adapt to them that it's very easy for them to swipe, to push, to draw, to pick out things. So it is very easy to use. We think about even the elderly. My father loves to play solitaire. He doesn't play many things, but that's one of the things. And then one of the other things that this Dr. Gary Small referenced is that it's such wonderful technology, and there's always something new, and it's almost infinite. We think about even ourselves as adults, there's constantly new and emerging things. We play games, we buy coins, we share it with our friends, we link it to Facebook. And there's always something new. Seems like I would say every couple of months, I'm adding a new app to my phone that somebody's invited me to. Well, and that kind of started making me think about how did we get here? I'm 45, so I'm back in the era of basically when I finished high school, we had green screens and DOS. I hadn't even been introduced to a Mac at that point. And my daughter, who's now 23, was still early on in this era. If we zoom in a little bit closer, this is a great little timeline that talks about different technology throughout the years. But we really want to focus on this back end. And I'm going to zoom in on that just quickly for you. So basically there are three things here. The Apple iPhone that got released in 2007, the MacBook Air, which we had laptops at that time, but the technology was ever growing with that. And then also the 2010 release of the iPad. It has made significant change in our world. So to move on a little further to that, we need to look at some research that was done by the Pew Research Center. The headline on this particular research was Technology Device Ownership in 2015. And they touted that 68% of Americans have smartphones and 45% have tablet computers. So what's significant about that is this is 2015 and we're in 2017. And At this day and age, this research grows astronomically within a year, year and a half, 2 years. And we'll see a little bit of that here in a minute. This particular research also showed how smartphones and tablets were increasing, but desktop and laptops and game consoles had kind of been leveling out at that time. Here's a couple of facts that relate to kids that was done by Common Sense. And we'll get into a little bit of their research here in just a second. 52% of 5 to 8-year-olds have used devices like smartphones or iPads. That's pretty significant. This research came about in about 2013. At that time, also, 40% of 2 to 4-year-olds have used devices like smartphones or iPads. Lastly, 10% of babies under the age of 1 have had some screen time. That's pretty significant. I can't even imagine at the time that I was a baby, we didn't have anything near a computer. My goodness, up until I was in high school, we still had typewriters. So I can't even imagine that. And I'm not really that old. I would think, I'm 45 and means of, 45 doesn't seem old to me. But the leap in technology that we've had within the last 10 years has been so super significant. A little bit more in this research from this Common Sense company. They did a research in 2011 that studied children from ages 0 to 8, and they looked at their media usage. Well, these particular graphs are pretty significant. When we look at 2011, we look at the number of kids that had never used any sort of digital device, mobile device. It was 62% had never used that. Well, that decreased in 2013 to 28%. This kind of jumps back to what I was saying about the Pew research, in that that research was done in 2015. Well, we're just about 6 months shy of being 2 years. So imagine what that jump has done again. More and more common things are becoming more and more common in the homes, like tablets and smartphones. Again, with this ownership of mobile media platforms over time, it showed which ones were in the home. So when you look down here, the tablet itself, in 2011, there was only 8% in the homes. But in 2013, there was 40% in the homes. Now you understand that from 2013 to 2017, we still have a pretty large jump. So you can only imagine what those numbers look like today and the significance of that being readily available in the home. So that leads me to, what are the concerns? Well, there's a lot of internet spouting about this, that, and the other. There's a lot of people that believe that people hand their phones and iPads to children to pacify them, to babysit them, much the way it was when we were younger and they were like, the TV is the babysitter. Well, yes and no, but apps and devices are being created. There are people that say they're good. There are people that say they're good for education. And the problem we just have right now is there's just not enough research, There's not enough kids to test the long-lasting effects of that. There's not enough research going on right now to test what all those things are. But some of the concerns are basically that it disrupts sleep, it encourages impatience and narcissism, possibly depression. It talks about it could inhibit their social and emotional development. It talks about impairing their development of skills needed for math and science. It also talks about, can they self-regulate? Can they learn to regulate their own internal mechanisms? Additionally, there are questions that get raised about how they develop empathy and problem-solving skills. At the same time, there's a question of whether it inhibits development of sensory motor and visual motor skills. But these are all things that we're still learning because, again, it's still so relatively new. If the iPad was only introduced in 2010 and it's only 2017, we're still looking at these kids from 0 to 8 that are using digital devices of a significant nature. So what's the deal? Where's the science come from? Well, there's this whole thing about the flow experience and where does that come from? And you've probably heard it before, but it really deals with dopamine. Dopamine being released in the brain when we have like a reward system. The interesting thing I found about this science behavior is this Ben Worthen that I mentioned early on. He made the comment that with touchscreen apps, the game decides when the child will end. instead of the child ending when the game ends. To kind of get through some of our other things, there were a few important factors that they mentioned as far as helping to alleviate some of your concerns, which talk about exposure time, the content that your kids are watching. You need to restrict access. You need to use the device as a motivator, not a bribe. You need to embrace the tantrum. You don't encourage it. You don't, you just need to embrace it, recognize it, acknowledge it, and then go on. And then lastly, we have to lead by example as far as us being parents and grandparents and adults. Lastly, how much time is right for kids? Well, this was a report that was done by CBS, and it kind of talks about 0 to 5, and then it talks about 5 to 18. And basically, the gist of this from 0 to 5, don't let your kids have any devices alone. Manage the device with them, look at it, discuss it. Did they like the app? Did they not like the app? Still encourage outside activities, still encourage good sleep habits. Don't let them watch the phone or the iPad an hour before bedtime, so that encourages good sleep. And then with school age children, kind of those some stipulations still fall in place. Monitor what they're doing, have free zones, digital zones in the house. Don't bring the phones and the media to the table, and then watch what your kids are doing. And then also limit it, and also encourage the adults around you to know what the rules are so that they can help monitor those as well. Anyhow, I hope to see what comes from this and what new and exciting research comes in the next few years. But for now, that's all I have. Thanks for listening.